Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about Black Clover episode 78. And first off, I just want to say, sorry this is so late. It's already, I assume Wednesday. I am hoping I'm uploading this. Came out Sunday, but I've been kind of getting enthralled in Game of Thrones ever since the new season started. So I've been kind of finding it hard to record that night so that I can get it up on Monday. And it's a whole thing. So I apologize for it being so late. Had some stuff over the last few days, but I still do have thoughts on it. So let's just get on with it. First of all, I could have mentioned this last week, but I'm not a huge fan of the new intro. It's fine. I like the last one and the one before that. I just don't care for this one particularly. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever. So, last episode, we had Noelle going up against Solid, and going up against Alec Dora, and they had their match, and it was a pretty good episode, honestly. I liked it a lot. Noelle got over on her brother, and just kept being a complete and utter badass. On top of that, we got a new character named N, and he's kind of a reserved guy when you meet him in person, but then when he's on the battlefield and he's got his whole mushroom magic thing going on, he kind of gets a loud mouth. But I like him a lot because he's supportive. He kind of helped Noelle just kind of really resign herself to getting stronger again during her battle with Solid. And I like their dynamic a lot, her and N. Even though she's like a royalty, whatever, and sometimes she like pretends to be snobby, I think she really did appreciate his words of wisdom and kind of a little bit of a morale boost during the battle. Now, this has got nothing to do with the battles themselves, but I do really love the relationship between the Wizard King and Charmy, because Charmy's just like this adorable little like ball of the bleh, and she's just hanging out on top of his lap, and they're eating snacks together, and like they're both children really, but like it's kind of funny to watch them kind of just interact, and like he's supposed to be the Wizard King, but she's just kind of chilling. She don't care. She's just hanging out. They're sharing snacks, like I said. I like their dynamics already. They're really cool together. I like them a lot. So we move on in this episode to the next round. We're finally gotten through all of the teams in the first round, and everybody that's won is now going to move on to the next round. And the first match is actually Asta once again, and it's Asta, Xerx, and Mimosa ups against Mimosa's brother's team, so it's Kirsch, Magna, and Sol, and it's actually kind of a cool dynamic between those teams. Obviously, Kirsch is kind of like this like high and mighty, he's royalty, or at least nobility, and he's just kind of like, he looks down on Asta because he's just a commoner, and it's a whole thing. So there's a lot of fluff and whatnot from Kirsch and acting like he's better than Asta and everybody around him. Which honestly makes it so much better with how things go in this episode, because I like the idea of him being like super embarrassing to Mimosa because she's pretty down to earth, and how he's just basically kind of a jerk. And then he kind of gets a little bit what's coming to him. But before that, before the new round starts actually, the Wizard King has all of his people change up the field. So they're getting a little bit of a different battlefield to go on. And really it's just like the mountain ranges kind of changing up, some land kind of goes up, a giant water spout comes out of one of the rock pillars, and it's basically them just kind of like changing some things up so they can see how the competitors react to a changing field and how they react in different environments. Which is a really smart thing to do, because if they were just getting back onto the same field, it really wouldn't be all that interesting. Speaking of interesting, this is kind of this whole thing, this whole tournament, the Royal Knights, is also, while it is actually a good plan to go after the Eye of the Midnight Sun, it's also kind of a vanity thing for the actual Clover King, and he's a little upset that the commoners that made him look like an idiot at the announcement of this thing are still in the running, so he's a little upset about and Asta being still around. I don't really like him, and I know that's kind of the point where it's like you're supposed to like the Wizard King and not really like him, but like I'm kind of over him and his stuff. Like, it's one thing with like the pompousness of like Kirsch or Solid. There's something there, but I get the feeling that he's really just kind of like, he's the king, and he's just kind of rude and obnoxious for the sake of being rude and obnoxious. I'm kind of bored with it. Like I said, the first match of this new round is between Asta's group and Magna's group, or Kirsch's group. And before we get into the battle, Asta kind of calls out Zerx on his whole trap thing. Apparently Zerx didn't look very happy when the ground started changing for the new field, and it had turned out that he had spent the entire night placing traps all over the place, and that's how he was able to do it for their match right at the start. He didn't put that there at the beginning of the match, because obviously he was nowhere near the traps that he laid, but apparently he was there the night before, and he has intel from sources or whatever, and clearly he's not a normal wizard or anything. He's not part of I think they're called the Purple Orcas. He's certainly not Zerx, and he's just this random person that has some kind of agenda, and I'm looking forward to finding out who exactly he is. We got a little bit of insight on him. Apparently, I assume it was his father. I think he said it was his father or something. Somebody important to him at the very least, which I think is his father, was a part of the Purple Orcas, and I think it'll really be interesting to see what his actual identity is and what his agenda is and how that kind of meshes with the tournament. So the match starts, and Asta right out of the gate is like, he wants Zerx and Mimosa to work together, and obviously Zerx is kind of just not having any of it. So Asta's plan is basically just get rid of everything. They start getting attacked by Kirsch's cherry blossom vortex thing, and Asta decides to use a relatively new technique. Apparently he's been developing this. I forget if he ever mentioned it before, whether this is just like he's been training thing, but he activates his anti-magic thing and starts turning around in a vortex or like a twister, and just zigzags across the field, knocking out all of the cherry blossoms and even destroying all of Zerx's remaining traps, and that kind of leaves a bad taste in Kirsch's mouth, and it kind of annoys Zerx, because it's like a whole night's worth of work putting up those traps is now gone, and that's kind of the point for Asta. Asta's really big on teamwork, and considering Zerx is not really interested in that kind of stuff, it's kind of they're butting heads a little bit, but they actually do end up getting kind of together on this. They work pretty well together. The one problem with this whole thing is that a lot of the magic traps that Zerx had put down on the field took a long time to put together, and that's why he took the entire day and night or whatever prior to setting all that up. So it's really kind of limits what he can do with his trap magic, and he's got a few different styles to do it, which are kind of rudimentary and just kind of simple, where it's basically, you get stuck there, or you fall into a hole, or whatever. So it's kind of some simple stuff that they kind of need to play with and have a good plan and set in place. So they basically just start plotting whatever. Meanwhile, back at Kirsch and Magna and Sol's side of the field, they're talking about Kirsch keeps talking about Asta and how much of a commoner he is and blah 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 blah, and he's going off on his whole high and mighty stuff. And then he finds out that Magna's a commoner too, which obviously duh, but he doesn't like that, so he basically leaves the two of them to fend for themselves, and is just like, I cannot take hanging out with commoners anymore, I'm gonna just take care of this. So he leaves Magna and Sol to basically just guard the crystal while he goes on the offensive. And we find out, so we knew that Kirsch was basically a pretty good tactician, but he's also got a good eye for magic in general. So he can notice people from a distance, where it's he was trying to figure out where Mimosa was and where Zerx was, and since obviously Asta doesn't have any magic, he's indetectable, but he was able to find Asta ultimately, because Asta just started yelling at him, and Asta kind of does this weird trick thing where he's in a cavern, and he's trying to get Kirsch to come in with him to get set up in all these traps. However, it's a trap within a trap, so Kirsch sees through the first trap and sends in some clones to kind of set them off and get rid of them. And he's like, well, that's all you've got. You've kind of cornered yourself. And now I'm just going to come in. And he starts walking. And that's where his first mistake is, really. So first of all, he should have just destroyed the entire cavern with Asta and just done what he could, just overload Asta. And he kind of starts doing that, but it's not so much. He gets a little bit too much of himself. So after Kirsch destroys the traps that he knows of, he, again, gets a little bit too big-headed and starts walking, which, again, he should have just, continued floating on his flower petals. And he ends up falling inside of a hole, like a literal hole. They dug a hole without magic and just kind of that's it. They dug a freaking... It's like a Team Rocket from Pokemon hole. They literally just dug a big hole, covered it up, and then waited for somebody to walk into it. Which says a lot about everybody involved. It says a lot about Kirsch because he's super smart in terms of just tactical magic stuff, but he clearly fell for a trap. He says a lot about Asta, which, well, it says a lot about Asta, but Asta's about the same for that. It's about right for Asta to physically dig a hole. But I'm sure that Zerx had some kind of say in that, so that's kind of funny. So Kirsch has fallen in a hole. He's pretty upset about it, and Asta comes diving in with his swords and whacks him on the head. Which, a couple of things here. So, first of all, I'm sure Kirsch is not happy about this. And two, I feel like getting hit in the head with a metal sword, a giant, frickin' sword, would probably do more than just knock you out. It would probably not only hurt, but maybe cause some internal bleeding, if not external bleeding. He just even the broad part of the sword, giant whack, it's no good. And that's really the end of the episode. Is this is kind of how you know a tournament arc is getting into the meat of it, where a match is still going. It's not like they ended the match. Neither side has had their crystal hit in any way. So we're kind of in the middle we're in the thick of it, really. Which is really refreshing, given that the entire first round, you could get through multiple matches in a single episode. And now we're actually taking our time and seeing where things go. The one downside to this, I think, unless they pull some craziness, is that every single match that Asta is part of, I kind of know he's going to win. I don't think that he's going to lose to Kirsch, Soul, and Magna. As much as I like Magna and Soul, not so much Kirsch, I don't see Asta losing this early on. I think at the very least he'll get up to whatever the semifinals are of this. So it's kind of obvious to see who's going to win in some of these matches, even if they are all named characters. In any event, it's a great spectacle, and I'm enjoying this tournament a lot. That's all I've really got to say about this episode. So let me know what you guys thought about this episode down below in the comments section. And if you enjoyed what I had to say, make sure to leave a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. It lets me know that you did enjoy it. And if you want to see more from me, make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. That way you won't miss out on anything that I upload. Yeah, that's all I got to say. I enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys in another video. Bye-bye.